are joined now in a Fox Business exclusive with Senator Tom Carper, Democrat from Delaware, who served 23 years in the military, retired as captain, and he is joining us now with ideas of where to cut. And this is a sensitive subject, Senator. Thank you so much for joining us. This isn't, as I would imagine you'd say, it's not about patriotism. It's about finding areas that can be cut. And where would you look first?
Well, actually, we need to look no further, Liz, than the General Accountability Office. Every year they do a rundown in a lot of departments in our federal government, including the Department of Defense. And last year they told us that major weapon system cost overruns were about $400 billion, up from $40 billion 10 years earlier. We're told by the Inspector Generals within the Department of Defense that, as I think you may have mentioned before the break, we're spending not $8 for spare parts for a helicopter, but about 30 times that amount. For a door part on a helicopter, we spend about 5 times more than we should be at a time when we actually have those spare parts in supply. A guy named Vince Lombardi, great football coach, used to say, if you're not keeping score, you're just practicing. Another way to say that what we don't measure, we can't manage. We don't do a very good job in the Department of Defense of actually running what we call auditable finances, to actually have clean, unqualified financial reports. We're supposed to for the last 20 years. We passed a law. We still haven't done that in the Department of Defense. But I tell you who's going to change that, and it's going to be Leon Panetta, former Budget Committee Chairman, former OMB Director, former Chief of Staff. He is all over this stuff. And that's going to be a very, very good thing. He'll be a change agent.
He is, but he has said, Senator, that if we cut more, we might hollow out the military, which nobody wants to do, obviously. But let's just give an example. Sikorsky, which makes helicopters. There were some charges that became very suspicious to the Inspector General. We can throw them up on the screen. There was a $181 plastic wiring box that we were charged, I say we as the taxpayers, $2,393. There was a rotor that should cost $1,500 that we paid $7,800 for. And overall, when you look at the 11+ million overcharge, 51% overcharge that some people were looking at and saying this is too much. Now, Igor Sikorsky, back in the 1800s when he created the helicopter, I mean, obviously, I'm sure during your 3 tours in Vietnam, you flew in some of these, but that's a little bit of too much for the American taxpayer, is it not? So how do we get our contractors to start charging fairly?
Well, first of all, we need inventory systems that are accurate, so that we can go off paying $1,500 or $7,500 for a door part for a helicopter if we have them in stock. We don't have very good inventory systems. We don't have very good accounting systems. One of the things, Leon Panetta has laid down the law. We had a hearing about a year ago on whether or not the Department of Defense was making any progress toward having auditable financials. And a year ago, people came and testified before us. The controller and others said, I don't think we can get there by 2017. This is not to be audited with clean financials, but this is to be auditable. So I think we'll get there. Leon Panetta took over about 2-3 months ago. We had the same witnesses before us last month, and they said, we'll be there. In fact, we'll beat that 2017 deadline.
When you hear that some of the contractors are saying that if you cut, that will, this was interesting to me, that will adversely affect mission success. Boy, that strikes at the heart of a lot of Americans. Nobody wants to do that. Can we cut the required amount? Do you expect the super committee will do it before Thanksgiving without hurting mission success?
Well, let me use an analogy here. We don't want to necessarily cut benefits in Medicare and Medicaid, but there's a lot of fraud, improper payments in Medicare, a lot of inefficiencies in Medicare and Medicaid. We have to go after those so that we don't have to cut benefits and hurt people. Similarly, in the Department of Defense, there is a lot of waste, there's a lot of fraud, there's a lot of overpayments, improper payments, and we don't measure. We don't have decent accounting systems, we don't have inventory systems that are reliable. We have huge overruns in weapon systems, and like $400 billion last year. That's just up tenfold from where it was just 10 years ago. These are areas where we can do better, and to the extent we need to do better, because we have to find ways to continue to ratchet down the deficit. We don't want to hurt readiness. We don't want to hurt our men and women in uniform. We don't want to hurt their families.
Never.
And there's a way to do that. There's a way to go after the deficit without hurting our warfighters and without hurting their families. And that is almost to take as a playbook the General Accountability Office's major faults that they find, the IGs. There's a high-risk list the GAO does every year. That should be our to-do list. It should be the to-do list for the super committee.
Need to get to news of the day. Senator Harry Reid of Nevada had proposed today the 5% extra tax on millionaires. If this were to come to fruition, would you vote for it, Senator?
Yeah, I've never talked much about taxes on billionaires and millionaires. The idea of actually, for part of a deficit reduction plan, to have a surtax for at least a period of time on income over $1 million, that's something that I can support. I've never been one to say we ought to tax millionaires or billionaires. Some of them pay a lot of taxes as it is. But part of an overall deficit reduction plan where most of the reductions on the spending side and we need some revenues, that would work.
What would you say you'd vote for it if it were temporary, or either way you would vote for this?
What I would like to see it as part of an overall deficit reduction plan. What I actually support is Bowles-Simpson. You know, $3 of deficit reduction on the spending side for every $1 on the revenue side. We do entitlement reform. At the same time, we do tax reform that actually generates some additional revenues. $3 of spending reductions, $1 of revenue.
Senator Tom Carper, 23 years, 3 tours in Vietnam, Navy captain. We salute you, we thank you, and we appreciate your perspective. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. Thank you very much.